This episode of Warp 5 is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek FM at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the non-profit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join in on the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode or any other, please join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's Babel, into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
This is Mike Sussman, writer and producer of Star Trek Enterprise, and you're listening to Warp 5 on Trek FM.
How we doing, Trip? Ready when you are. Prepare for warp.
Course laid in, sir. Request permission to get underway. Let's go.
Welcome, Boomers, to another episode of Warp 5, Trek FM's dedicated Enterprise show. I'm your host, Floyd Dorsey, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Brandon Shea Mutala. How's it going, Brandon?
I'm really hungry. If we could stop for a burger, I'd really appreciate that. You know, you can make it a double for only 40 cents.
No, that's okay. We'll just go with the single on that. Yeah, that actually was pretty funny for that episode. And tonight we have a new guest on with us. We're joined by the co-host of the Shore Leave podcast, Heather Barker. Welcome to Warp 5, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Very good.
We're happy to have you here. I just want to say before we start, live long and pause.
Thank you. Perfect.
Awesome. And also joining us for tonight's show, we have returning guest, Patrick Devlin. Welcome back, Patrick.
Oh, thanks for having me on again, guys.
Oh, no problem. Glad to have you both on. So,
You're
Heather,
a retrospective dude. We can't do it without you, Patrick.
That's awesome. That sounds great because I love this season.
really?
This is the last one he's on, Floyd, right?
Yes.
We hadn't talked about that yet. Okay, so Heather, to get us started, I always like to find out how and when new guests of Warp 5 became Star Trek fans. So what series or moment caught your attention for the first time? And then when did you know that you were a Star Trek fan?
Oh, I like this question. It's a hard question because there's some bad memories there, but some really good stuff that I like to tell. So my first Trek was Enterprise, believe it or not. I had seen Trek on TV. I grew up with TNG and Voyager and everything on air, DS9. I was kind of raised to think that Star Trek was for nerds, which is awful, right? So
It's also true.
it was really sad, okay, in retrospect. So unfortunately, Enterprise was not quite the Trek for me. I lost interest through the second season, and although I continued watching it through the third and fourth seasons, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. It wasn't really until, so I saw Nemesis in the theater too. It wasn't until we decided in 2009, my ex-husband and I went to the Las Vegas Star Trek convention. We saw the JJ movies. They got us excited about Trek again. And we're like, let's go find our people, right? So we went to the Star Trek Las Vegas convention, and I've been hooked since then. We binged all of Star Trek except the animated series. The summer well, I won't say the summer, probably a couple years. It was a lot of Star Trek to watch in a year, right? But we watched everything, and I paid attention, I fell in love, and when I got to talk about Star Trek with everyone at the convention and found my tribe, found my people, that's when I just fell in love with Star Trek, and now I do a podcast about conventions. I talk about Star Trek every day. I can't imagine my life without Star Trek, and even though my story is kind of tied to my past life and my ex-husband, and even though the Kelvin universe got me super excited about Star Trek, I like to tell my story because you can become a fan. You can become a Trekkie at any time in your life. It doesn't matter when. It just matters that you love Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I love that. I love that.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean the Kelvin movies really got my son's attention.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I tried to show him, you know, Enterprise and DS9 and things like that. But after they saw the Kelvin movies, they got excited about it,
Yep.
and they wanted to go back and watch it again.
Yep.
And now DS9 is their favorite series.
Yay, it's mine too.
Right. So I mean, it's right there. I love that. I love that the Kelvin movies, you know, brought you in as a fan. That's great.
Yeah, I have opinions about them. You know, some are really great, I think. Some are not so great. But overall, they bring new blood and new fans to Star Trek, and I love Trekkies. So I want to see our fan base grow, and I'm obviously super excited about Discovery. Not just because it's Star Trek that we get to watch, but because there are people out there that don't even know. They don't know that they're about to go down the rabbit hole that is the Star Trek universe. And I'm so excited for those people and to get to meet them.
Very good. Very good.
I literally say that all the time. I literally say that the best part of the Kelvin universe is that it's bringing in the new kids.
Yeah.
Right. And Enterprise was your first Star Trek series.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. That is so interesting.
You know, so I remember seeing an episode of Voyager and some TNG, and I don't know if they were just bad episodes, but they just seemed really campy. And I probably did not give them a fair chance, and I feel bad because I've been a sci-fi fan since I was a child. So the fact that I overlooked Star Trek, or that the stigma of Star Trek caused me not to give them a chance, you know, it's embarrassing. I don't like to share that. But now, you know, I love it. I go back, I rewatch seasons constantly. I'm just now making it through the animated series. So by STOV, I will have watched it all.
Very good.
So yeah, Gateway Trek, and I'm excited to talk about it tonight.
Very good.
Isn't the animated series terrible?
You know, I like the animated series.
There's some good ones in there.
Some of it is terrible, but it's a lot of fun. It's Star Trek to me, so.
Yeah, I actually recently watched the animated series. It was the last Trek that I hadn't seen,
Mm-hmm.
and it was probably about a year ago, and I went through and watched it. And I guess I think I saw the shows when I was a kid, you know, when they were actually on TV as reruns, or maybe first run, I don't know. But they, yeah, there's some that were really, really good, and some that are they just kind of fill the spots. So
Yeah, just like all of Star Trek. There's some that's good.
Right,
There's some
exactly.
that's not so good.
right.
I think they're fun, and a lot of people don't like the art. They speak so poorly of the animation, but I think there's some gems in there and some really beautiful artwork. So that's one of my favorite parts of the animated series, aside from just some really fun stories.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. So, Boomers, we're not talking about the animated series tonight for Warp 5. We're actually going to be continuing our retrospective series and going deeper into the Delphic Expanse in Season 3. And again, in this section, as we have in the previous retrospective for Season 3, and because of its continuing arc format, we're going to be doing what we did in Parts 1 and 2, going in order of episode number rather than jump around as in the past. So for tonight's retrospective, Part 3, we are going to discuss North Star, Similitude, Carpenter Street, and Chosen Realm. So I've got to say, just getting this started here, out of these four, two of them are really knockout, I think. Maybe three. There is one though, I'm not so sure. I might have to have some convincing on this. So
Yeah, that similitude's not very good.
that is not what I was thinking.
Oh, what?
Oh, great. Here we go again. All right. So, North Star. Let's getting this started off. We find the crew in a Western setting. So, Heather, what did you think about that when you saw the NX-01 crew in a Western setting?
Well, first I was like, am I watching Star Trek? Like, what is this? In the cold open, it was a little confusing. But once we got past that, I was really excited. I think it's fun when we get to see our crews in a different setting. And so I really enjoyed it, and I was excited about the episode. And
Patrick, what did you think about this?
I love this episode. The story that it tells with the overt racism against what they call the Skags at the time, the fact that everyone has always compared Star Trek to a Western in space anyway, and then they actually put it in a Western in space, which was great. And just even just the way the characters acted it out, like when Archer gets up and wants more coffee because he's trying to break up the little thing going on between the I guess he was the deputy, right? Yeah, the deputy and the guy who was supposed to be helping, but wasn't allowed to drink. He was trying to force him to drink and all that. I loved everything about the episode, really.
Very good. And Brandon, what did you think about the Western setting and our crew doing some investigating?
This is very much a Star Trek episode. You get those episodes in the original series where they go to the gangster planet and all like things like that. And it made me think a lot of Spectre of the Gun as I'm watching it again, right? Because that's the Western that you get in the original series. But I think it fits really well, and but it's odd because it's thrown in the middle of this Xindi arc and has absolutely nothing to do with the Xindi arc. You could completely excise this episode from your DVD set and it doesn't matter. You've missed nothing other than a good episode, right? And that's kind of what's fascinating about it. And I had read somewhere that, so the author of this is David A. Goodman. He wrote this, and he's gone on to work on Family Guy and Futurama and stuff like that. And he actually wrote, if you guys have read it, the autobiography of James T. Kirk, which came out last year. It was a really good book. And it's I think they had asked for people to write episodes that didn't have to do with the Xindi arc, just in case the Xindi arc didn't work out. And so David A. Goodman was the first one to really come up with one like that. And yeah, so it's weird that it's because it's weird because they mention it right at the end, right? When they say, look, we'll have to come back to take you people off this planet when we're done with the Xindi, right? Like they say that at the end, but that's really the only reference that you get to this Xindi arc that's going on.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I wrote down on this. I wrote very much a TOS episode, or had a TOS feel to it. And also, why is this a standalone story in the middle of the Xindi arc? It just isn't there. So this actually makes me think about what we're going to be getting in future TV that we've got going on, like Discovery or future TV that we've got going on. For this, we were talking about 22, 24, 26 episodes, and they had to fill in with something. And this kind of feels like a fill-in, but it's a really good fill-in, or at least I feel like it is. I like it as a fill-in. But when we get these narrowed, really focused story arcs, like 10 episodes, 13 episodes, we might be losing something like this. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little bit worried, that we won't have like the below decks type episode from TNG, or we might not have a North Star episode because they're going to be so focused, hyper focused on the actual story. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, Archer.
And we're also not going to get any Profit and Lace either, and that's a shame.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. I guess that could change my mind on that. Yeah. Yeah.
But even Babe Ruth didn't hit a home run every time he got up.
I'm pretty sure he did. Like every time I ever see him, he's hitting a home run. Right?
But no, really, like I will miss some of these episodes because one of the things I liked about this season so much was that the Xindi arc itself was great for me, but the filler episodes made it, although this one actually had a lot to think about too, but you didn't have to think so much about the whole terrorist aspect during this episode. It was a break from that, which I felt was needed from time to time, and we pretty much have one in every block of 4 that we talk about.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like Exile was from the last block.
Right. And then the one before that, which was
Extinction. Oh dear Lord.
Okay, so we didn't need that, all right? But it did eventually pay off because I got that really cool picture of the crew on Fraggle's heads. So, I mean, it took a while, but it paid off.
Right. Very good. So, just looking through this, I really liked, Archer like channeling as Kirk. He's dressed up as a cowboy. He's playing it up. They're talking about the blue horns, and it was, I don't know, it was just really, really cool. I mean, I love Westerns and I love Star Trek, so I'm really liking this. I'm liking where I'm at on this. But yeah, like this kind of reminded me a little bit of Errand of Mercy, maybe from original series, and I really enjoyed this episode. So there was definitely a mention, or there's definitely an allegory of prejudice and bias in this. So did you enjoy, or did you appreciate how they came about this, Heather?
Yeah, I thought it was an easy way to tell that story, and I thought that it was told it was serious, but there was also some levity. And I think the fact that it is a standalone episode, everything is wrapped nice and neat in a little package at the end. So it works well with the story. It reminded me a lot of Spectre of the Gun, and kind of how they had the same thing with trying to think of the names of the two clans there.
OK Corral.
Yeah, I had the names written down
the
there
Clantons,
somewhere.
The Clantons.
And the Earps.
Yeah.
The Earps, there you go.
Yeah, but it's overall, again, it is a very Star Trek story, and that humans have evolved past bigotry. And
see, the interesting question, I'm just going to interrupt there for a second, is that yes, there's this story of bigotry and whatnot going on, but it does have that question of like, how long should you have hate in your heart? Because these humans, yes, they overthrew the Skagarans, but they've oppressed them, and now what the Skagarans did to them is terrible. It took these people away from their planet and made them slaves, but how much does somebody have to suffer for previous generations' crimes? And that's what I think is an interesting question about this episode, and what's the most fascinating aspect about this episode myself.
And that is interesting, because you think about it, they have been stuck for 100 years or however 200 years. Yeah. I mean, they're totally stuck. They're not progressing any farther with technology. So that's also kind of a thing that you have to think about. Like, they're really, really stuck in their ways. Like, they're being, speciesist against this particular race, which, if you think about it, they got stolen from Earth by these aliens, and then they were being forced to be like workers, and then they revolted against them. So then they see themselves as being right in that, and they don't want it to happen again. That's why they don't let the little kids learn how to read and write. But it's all looking back at like past history. Like these things have all happened in past history here on Earth, our own history. And I thought it was pretty interesting that they could put it all into this one episode, and we can see something that we recognize. All right, so another thing that I liked about North Star, maybe it's not something I liked. I actually liked that they referenced Trip's harmonica, but they got rid of the harmonica. So Patrick, are you a harmonica fan? Are you a Trip's harmonica fan, or did you like seeing the harmonica go?
Okay, so funny story. I want a harmonica and to learn how to play it because of Trip.
Okay.
And my wife laughs at me constantly. So, she constantly, and a harmonica costs like $6. It's not even that hard to buy. It's not hard to find. You can get it anywhere. And I always want it, and she always makes me feel so bad about it that I don't buy it. And it's all because of Trip.
Right.
So, yeah, I like the fact that they bring that up. Although he does get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible host. When have we seen the harmonica before?
He did play it previously.
Did he?
Yeah. He did have it out. He had it out previously. The reason that they actually gave the harmonica away is because one of the producers didn't like it.
I heard that David Goodman didn't like it.
Or maybe it was the writer didn't like it. Maybe
so he wrote it out.
There you go. So,
we'll have to ask him if we ever get him on the show.
I actually had that up. I was like, that was a question I wanted to ask him if we ever have him on. Is like, what do you have against harmonicas? What's the problem?
Probably the same thing my wife does.
Oh well,
that they're for nerds,
right?
But so is Star Trek.
Very good. So yeah, North Star. I thought it was a home run, even though it doesn't have anything to do with the Xindi arc. I'm glad that we have it. So.
There's one thing in this episode that really throws me for a loop, and it's done with the editing, and it's either right before or right after Archer breaks that woman out of prison. There's a wipe. There's a scene wipe, and it's like, it's so weird because you never see that in Star Trek. Like, you see it all the time in Star Wars. George Lucas uses them all the time, like those irising editing, irising open, irising close,
Right.
wiping across the screen, wiping up the screen or whatever. And there's a wipe from right to left in the screen, and you never see that on Star Trek. It completely pulls me out of the episode every time I see it.
Thanks a lot. Because
I've
I've never
never
noticed it
Hey, I
before.
didn't notice it.
Ever.
Now I'm going to see it.
Man.
Okay.
You just ruined the entire episode for everyone listening.
I'm sorry. I'm so
I've
sorry.
I have not noticed it, but if it was it after a joke or like what was?
No.
No, it was the breakout when he gets her out of prison.
No, like the
Yeah, it's not during a breakout. It's during the middle of the episode. It's like it's
No, when
either
he-
right before or right
Right,
after.
it's right around there, which I'm fast forwarding to as soon as we're ending here.
Yeah, and there's a wipe right to left, and there's nothing else in the. I don't think there's another one in the episode. It's just it sees it, and I'm like, what are they doing?
So okay,
they don't do that.
Okay, so think about it like they are in a western. Like I've not ever noticed it, but it might be because I'm used to watching westerns and I'm used to watching, shows like that maybe, and then wipes are more common in other shows. So maybe that's why I didn't even notice it. I don't know. Now I'm going to be looking for it. All right.
Yeah, but even if that was the case, then they should have done it the whole episode,
right.
Yeah.
not once. But
Well, that's why I was
Thanks,
thinking, was it
Brandon.
after a joke or was there like something like that was said that was kind of funny and then whoop, wipe away, and
well, breaking out of prison in a western is as stereotypical as it gets. So
jailbreak. Yeah.
I was just seeing a jailbreak before.
Right. Exactly.
So back to parts that actually happened in the episode that weren't crazy editing things. One of the things I liked about this episode too was that it still kept the theme of the season while having nothing to do with the season, because it's still about judging a people by how they were born, opposed to
Yeah.
Right.
because we find that when you first start this season that everyone just the Zindi want all of the people from Earth dead, and people from Earth now want every Zindi dead. And there's a whole lot of crossover of people who don't even know this war is happening during these episodes to show, that just because you're having a war with the two governments, let's say, doesn't mean that everyone's on board. And then this episode basically does the same thing. Like you brought up, Brandon, with the, how long do they have to pay for the misdeeds of their ancestors? And, it's not even that they're just paying for it. They're literally being held down from even learning how to read.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't just like make them a lower class citizen. They tried to make them not people,
Right.
subhuman,
Almost slaves. It was almost slave.
Oh yeah, they are slaves.
Right.
I mean, and this is all because they under the guise of we never want them to do it to us again.
Right. So that makes it justified.
In their mind, right?
Right.
Which is exactly why the Zindi are attacking Earth, because they don't want Earth to destroy them in whatever many years that's going to take to happen.
I like that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I never really thought of it that way. I like that, Patrick. That's good.
I like that they brought in the kids, and it's such a good moral in this episode. And I feel like by having the kids there, it's like, again, it's a Star Trek moral that you would pass on to your kids, and having the kids for me just kind of emphasizes that part, even though they don't have a huge role. But it had a nice, neat ending with the schoolroom, and we're teaching our kids about the future now, and teaching them at all.
Right.
But I thought that was pretty meaningful, since we don't have a lot of Star Trek episodes with kids.
And that also is very on the point that, the people that we're seeing here didn't have anything to do with the abduction of the humans, and they actually didn't have anything to do with the revolt. So they're removed hundreds of years from any of those happening, but they're still living it out as if they were the ones doing it. So now you bring in the children who are actually innocents and really have nothing to do with it, but yet they're still being punished for something that happened centuries before. So actually, I like that you mentioned that about the kids, because that does hit it right on the head about, the innocence, and it's not really their fault. Why are they being punished?
Yeah.
And speaking of the word punishment just made me think of it. In the beginning, we see that they hang the guy, right? They hang him to kill him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he says to the woman that you find out later is half of that race, but says to her, well, if I would have been around, he would have at least gotten a trial. And then she goes, yeah, but he would have been found guilty anyway. And he goes, well, it's illegal for a skag to murder a human, even if it was in defense. Well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just that whole set of laws is ridiculous.
Right. But there are actually examples of that in our own human history.
Oh, absolutely. But and this is what I love so much about Star Trek is that it does draw back. I mean, this is really an allegory of slavery in America and Jim Crow laws and other things like that. But, you know, and then they draw on that and then they make us talk about those issues in somewhat of an abstract way before getting back to what they're really talking about.
Yeah. I would like to know what happened. Like if they ever went back and if they had truly evolved past that bigotry, you know, what happened to these people? I don't know if it gets covered in any books, but that would be interesting to see.
There are Skagarans in Starfleet later on. I remember the name from some of the... I don't remember if it's... I think it might have been one of either David Mack's or Dayton Ward's later novels, but I know that Skagarans are mentioned again. Maybe it was Christopher L. Bennett with his Enterprise novels, but I know the Skagarans are mentioned in the books a few times. But they don't really say what happened on the planet, so I think the implication is that everything went okay.
Yeah. Overall, it was, you know, nice, neat, good Star Trek morals and a little package with a bow at the end. Feel-good episode. And
did you appreciate Reed's tactical decision that he made by stunning T'Pol the hostage?
No.
Yes.
Just the one woman. I get, you know, it was funny. It was a fun moment. It was fun that he did that. It was kind of a bummer. We didn't get a whole lot of girl power in this episode.
That
so
is true, yeah.
I wish that T'Pol had we got an Archer punch. Couldn't we have had a T'Pol punch?
Right. What if it was reversed? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I would like that even more because T'Pol's going to be illogical about it.
Yeah.
And she's going to shoot Reed. You know?
Yeah, that would have been great.
So
Yeah, they get back after the ship doing some... Hey, Reed, let's do some phaser practice in the armory.
Right. Go stand against that
Take
wall.
that.
Go stand against that wall. Yeah, Reed's going to get his later. You know, T'Pol's not... She doesn't let stuff like that slide. Let's just say that. All right, so let's go ahead and switch to the next episode, which is Similitude. And I'm sure we don't have much to say about this one. So we can just kind of probably just smooth right over that, right?
It's pronounced Similutidi.
Oh, I'm sorry. So our cold open with Trip in the casket, it surprises me. It surprised me the first few times I actually watched this episode. So Heather, what did you think when you saw Trip in the casket?
Yep, I think it's a standout moment for Enterprise because you're shocked. You don't, what is going on is basically what I said. I do this a lot. I have my what moment? That's pretty much what it was.
Very good. And it was a torpedo hole, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Right. So Patrick, seeing Trip in the casket, did you think it was all over for Trip there?
Yes. I thought we were going to see a main character, perish, and one that I actually liked a lot. And I know you guys didn't agree with me with the whole T'Pol screaming and yelling thing, but I actually like the cold openings that we're having in this season because you don't know what to expect, and then it cuts off, and then you got to watch. Back then I had to watch commercials and the beginning scenes and all that before we got in and found out what really happened. But when you first see him die, you're like, uh-oh. How? You got to tell me how.
Oops.
Oops. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs.
Well, what's sad is, again, I was watching this with... I couldn't really... I mean, I can't say the things I would have said on here either, but I was watching with my grandmother, remember, so I couldn't say them then either. But, I thought I missed an episode. I thought he died and I missed it.
You watch this with your grandma. Speaking of that, we got the massage in this episode.
Oh, boy. We do. And that was all a cheesy ruse to get her just to wear a nightgown. That was cut in the middle.
We haven't seen the massage in a while. Okay, so I like this episode a lot.
And why does that come up with my grandmother?
This is a great episode of Star Trek. However, upon hindsight and rewatches, I don't like the teaser. Because it's a cheap cop-out. The first time you watch it, it's great because you're like, what's going on? But after rewatches, I think it's a cheesy fake-out. I don't know. But that's the only bad thing I have to say about the episode.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, on the cold open, I see it now, and after I've seen it and I know who it is, it kind of like, oh man, there he is. He did the thing. He did the thing that he had to do. So yeah, it is different. It's definitely different after you've seen it the first time. Because the first time it's kind of shocking. You're thinking that maybe this actor is not going to be on the show anymore. And like, man, I like Trip. I like Connor Trinneer. And now there he is. And that also brought to mind, is it the end of Wrath of Khan, where they put Spock in the tube?
Spock in the tube, right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because Spock has to give his life in order to take down Khan.
Right. So on this, we have a moral dilemma where Phlox provides all the available options to Archer, and he's got this larvae that they can inject with the DNA, and we can actually clone someone, or at least it's never been tried on humans before. So I kind of thought this was kind of Prime Directive-ish again. Again, here's Phlox giving us a moral dilemma that might need to be referenced, or a law made against, or a rule or something like that. So Heather, what did you think when they had to turn to creating a clone, and then Archer having to actually deal with the decision? Or maybe what did you think about his decision?
So I find this episode really interesting. It reminds me a lot of the Tuvix episode in Voyager, and very similar dilemmas that they both face, although Archer ultimately isn't forced to make the final decision, whereas Janeway was. Right. I think it's really interesting that, Archer does make the decision to do this and keeps his distance from Trip. I think it says a lot about their characters and how close they really are, and Archer's vulnerability there. I think it was the right decision. Ultimately, they need Trip. It really sucks that, Sim has to choose to give up his life. But I think he does so with dignity, and it makes this episode definitely a standout for this season.
Right. And then T'Pol points out why this is wrong. Like, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this. And Archer actually says, I'm aware of the ethical implications. If we weren't in the Expanse, maybe my decision would be different, but we've got to complete this mission. Earth needs Enterprise. Enterprise needs Trip. It's as simple as that.
Yep. And it's a lot better than his usual, I had no choice. Right. It's his little catchphrase, right?
Right. And then this could also, getting into, at this time, like political, like the what was going on actually in the world at that time, the U.S. Could have been making some decisions that they were justifying, or they were just, they were saying that we have to do this, even if it's a bad thing, we have to do this. So I just kind of wondered, does this kind of be a comment on that? What do you think about that, Brandon?
I don't think it's a comment on that. Like, when I watch this, there are two clear things that I'm thinking about when I watch this episode. I'm thinking of, one of the main plots is I'm thinking about the ethics of cloning, right? And what does that mean? And what rights would something have if you're creating it for a purpose?
Right.
So this Sim was created for the sole purpose of harvesting his organs, and he wouldn't have been created had they not needed those organs. So what rights does this thing have if that's the purpose of it being created? And then the other thing, and I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I was thinking about this a lot, is this episode makes me think a lot of abortion.
Yep.
Because, they're sitting here talking, like, when did this become a person? Right? Because, a baby grows in you for 9 months. At what point does it become a person, right? Well, this similitude is going to last for 18 days. Well, at what point did we get attached to this, and this is our friend now? So, I don't know. That was really strongly in my mind as I was watching this episode the last couple times, but especially this time here.
Yeah, and what would it have been different if he had not actually evolved into Trip? Like, because and I had trouble understanding how he retained all these memories of Trip's, the science there with the tissue and everything. I wasn't quite sure why he would have all of Trip's memories and just be Trip altogether.
I think Phlox said something about that it was like a new discovery, possibly, that we have genetic memory, in humans now, which would lead on to the Assassin's Creed video games.
I might have.
I have
But
something to add to that when you're done your thought there, Heather. I've got something to add to that.
Yeah, I might have glossed over that part, but I think that it would have been completely different if this had just been someone else and not Trip.
Like if you look at the clone from the second episode of D Space Nine, A Man Alone, right? I don't know if you remember that one. That's the one where Odo's convicted on trial for murder, and it turned out that the Bajoran killed his own clone, right? And that clone, like, it's a long time before it even starts to look human, right? It looks like this big blob. So if at the end of this life cycle it's just a blob and you can pull something out of it and give it DNA to Trip, how are you going to feel about it? But as far as the memory thing, a friend of ours and co-host on the network here, Tony Black, has an X-Files podcast, and I was on an episode from season 2 of the X-Files with him about the episode was called Aubrey, and in that we had a really interesting discussion about genetic memory, because I think that's what that episode was about. And one of the examples that I used is when I was a teenager, I was laying on the floor watching TV with my hands underneath my chin like this, looking up at the TV, and my aunt said to me, "Your dad used to sit like that and watch TV." I never lived with my dad, so why would I do that? And when I make a point and when I talk, I enunciate my words the way that my dad does. And there's one hand motion that my dad does where he does this. He puts his hand at a 90-degree angle and he points like this, and he enunciates his points like this. And I do that. And I've never lived with my dad. I've been around him, but I never lived with him. Why do I do those things? Well, that's kind of a genetic memory that's been passed down from my dad to me. And that's what I get out of it as well, is that but they're expanding on it. Like, these are actual memories that he's having as opposed to actions, right?
I think the point of him having the genetic memories doesn't necessarily bother me. It's that as he gets older, he remembers more of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's a little confusing. Like, either he knew it or he didn't. It's not like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be 12 now, so I remember everything up to being 12.
Yeah.
You know, like, that just was a little weird.
Now we're getting a little temporal.
Yeah, it just gets out of
in,
little.
right?
But
Whatever.
that's that part. If they don't have that, you don't have the conflict at the end of the episode. That's the only thing.
I like to say, it is science fiction, so we do have to suspend belief at some point.
Are you saying this isn't real? Wait a minute.
Believe it or not.
But didn't we also go to outer space and someone thought we... Oh, wait, wrong movie.
Okay.
No, but other than that, the whole... I never even thought of the abortion angle, but it actually fits perfectly now that you said it. But at the time, too, we were also... That was about when we were cloning sheep here in America and stuff, and we were also starting to try and clone... I believe this is right around the same time that they were cloning like human ears on rats' backs, and whether that was ethical or not. So this is kind of commentary to that. Although I don't think the rats... Well, I guess they would have to die if you ripped an ear off their back, but I don't really know. I didn't look into it that much. So I think a lot of this has to do with that. And I think it's a big question of, does the ends justify the means? The ship needs Trip. The war needs the ship. So does letting this being perish, is that justifiable under these circumstances? Is a big question that because they took the easy way out of him giving up himself, they don't really answer that question for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, Patrick just said that was the easy way out. So if you want to talk to Patrick about that, his handle is @MagicDrop5.
Why does everyone keep doing this to me on every podcast?
Very good. So
no, I mean, I don't mean that the Sim took the easy way out. I mean that the writers let him do it on his own instead of having him be forced to. Man, so if you really want to contact me, because I'm going to get yelled at now, it's MagicDrop5 on Twitter, and I'm always on the Babel conference. Just yell at me.
Very good, very good. So I was actually referencing like Dark Archer here. Dark Archer took a deep, dark turn after Earth was attacked. And he's feeling a lot of pressure. I mean, his hair's messed up. He's unbuttoned a couple of buttons at the top, for season 3 here. And I do
that when I eat too much turkey at Thanksgiving, but it's on my belt.
Well, Archer's doing it when he thinks the world is on his shoulders. He has to get this done. So this was an exchange that he had with Sim. He said, "I must complete this mission, and to do that, I need Trip. I'll take whatever steps necessary to save him." And Sim says, "Even if it means killing me," and Archer replies, "Even if it means killing you." So this was Archer we get down to later when he steals a warp core and he basically just maroons a crew out in the middle of space, only on impulse. This is another decision of Archer going down a dark path to try to get it done. And the ends justify the means in his case. That's what he's thinking. Earth needs this. We have to do this. And I mean, I don't know if he mentioned maybe that he was going to walk him down by phaser point, or maybe Sim asked him if he was, or maybe I'm just making that up, or I'm just connecting it. But I mean, I could see that happening here. So what did you think about Dark Archer, Patrick?
Well, again, I just want him. I mean, and he comes close this time, but again, he doesn't actually pull the trigger himself. He doesn't actually do it. Like we were talking about Regine. There's no way you're getting off the ship. If I wanted Archer to tell him, no, you're going to die, man. That's it. End of story. I'm not even letting you have this conversation and just move on.
Right.
But he doesn't do it. This is probably the closest we get to that till he maroons that crew.
Right.
Of the whole season, this is the closest he gets to just being done with it all and saying, my ends justify my means, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And here it is, and phasering him until he passes out.
Well, I almost think that this is like maybe the darkest. I almost kind of see this as being darker than, him marooning the crew. Almost. I mean,
if he would have, yeah, but I think
I guess that's true. I guess that's true.
One, right?
But yeah, I mean, he's literally going to kill this guy. I mean, Janeway made the same decision in Tuvix.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't. But he doesn't. He doesn't have to. He's not actually forced to.
But he would
shoot
have.
The guy.
You guarantee he would have.
I don't know. He didn't shoot Regine, and I would have shot her. And that's, I don't even care if we win the war, and I would have shot her.
Right. Well, Heather, on that,
silence.
That was a back. That was a back. We were talking about military strategy, and in Regine, she had actually stolen their biological. Basically their plans, and they were stealing her off the ship. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah.
And it references the next episode.
Right. So we were just saying that, Archer had her. He could have taken that option out for them, but he didn't. So we were saying he hadn't reached that dark point yet, that he was willing to just to sacrifice her in order for the mission. But now here we are, and he's willing to sacrifice Sim for the mission. So I thought that was very, very interesting.
Yeah, and again, I think that Sim is going to die anyway. Sim only lives for 15 days?
Yeah.
So
yeah, but Sim.
Right, he has the.
Phlox had the enzyme.
Right, which they don't know is going to work on a human or not, but by the time they find out if it does work or not, it'll be too late. Is the problem?
Right.
Yeah.
If he would have brought that up on day 2, it might have had enough time to work, but now it doesn't. Trip will be dead if they try that method.
Yeah.
Right.
Very good.
Which I like the fact that that's the way it was, because if you could have done it earlier on, then it makes it, then they would have started that and you fix Trip and you hope he still lives. And now that's not even an option. Right. Now that's not even an option. You have to pick one or the other.
So this was a knockout episode for me. I really liked this episode. I mean, even at the end, it can kind of get you a little lump in your throat. When it pans over to Trip and sees him standing there, looking down at Sim. This was the first screenplay written by Manny Cotto after he was brought on as co-executive producer. And man, he knocked it right out of the park.
And we talked with him in episode 100 of Warp 5. If you haven't listened to that interview, please go back and check it out.
So we actually told him then that Similitude is one of our top episodes. Also, this episode won an Emmy Award for Velton Ray Bunch's musical composition. So this is a nice episode, and it's won awards. It's a really standout episode, I think.
I want to add 2 more things to this before we move on. I really like the B plot with these magnetic rocks on the hull. I think that's really cool, and I really like that a lot. And also, I would like to see some of the more complex Vulcan massage therapy positions.
Can I add something really quickly since we're going to talk about T'Pol there? I had an issue with T'Pol and Sim because I really didn't. I understand why they had Sim confess those feelings to T'Pol, but I felt like that was such a violation of Trip's privacy.
Right.
Did anybody else have a problem with that?
Yeah.
Well, I think they got around it because he said, I don't know if they're my feelings or his.
Right, but he's still really divulging and I mean, I think we all know at this point it's insinuated, right, that there's something developing there.
Right.
I can see how you can kind of skirt under the table with that, but to me, it just kind of felt like a violation of Tripp's privacy.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I
I
mean,
don't know. I never really thought about it. I mean, I just assumed she knew because she's Vulcan.
See, and I guess I never thought about it because I despise shipping in Star Trek, but the only relationship that I shipped was T'Pol and Trip. So I'm like, yes, now she knows.
Right.
Yeah, I really liked them, and I mean, this episode was a great opportunity to really push that, development of that relationship forward. But I was just like, now we've had this moment, and it's not actually between T'Pol and Trip; it's between T'Pol and Sim.
yeah.
So makes me sad.
And now Sim's not going to be there, and Trip comes in and goes, "What did I miss?" And T'Pol says,
And T'Pol says, well, we kissed. Oh, that was all him. That had nothing to do with me. That was all Sim.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it would definitely make it uncomfortable. It's creating drama for later, because now she knows that he knows that he doesn't know or something, So, yeah, I can appreciate that.
Poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy.
He's always the last of the party.
Yeah. All right.
No, Reed is the one that's last of the party.
Yeah, Reed's
true.
always last. All right, so the next episode, I don't have that much to say.
I love this episode.
Oh, okay. So Carpenter
At
Street.
least someone's gonna
Carpenter
talk.
Street. So Brandon loves it. Are you kidding? Or are you serious?
No, I like this episode a lot.
Because I watch all shows and I'll go through, but there's some that I'll kind of skip because I already know what's going to happen, or I'm just not interested in watching it. I kind of skip this one sometimes. So why? What makes it really interesting for you, Brandon?
It's another type of a breather episode. However, it is very central to the Xindi plotline. And they've been building up to this with a couple of episodes, like prior to Regine as well as Regine.
Right.
Because they had mentioned at one time previous, they're like, look, if you can't get this weapon up and running, we're going to go with our other plan. And we don't find out what that other plan is. Right. And then Regine happens, and she's stealing this DNA, and we don't really understand what's going on. Well, here now we know why she's been stealing that DNA, right? Yeah, maybe it didn't have to happen in the past. But I don't know. I like the idea of them being in modern times. I like the idea of them stealing blood types, people with certain blood type.
Right.
I think that's an original concept that we haven't seen in Star Trek yet. And I like the fact that the Xindi are going against... Sorry, the Xindi reptilians are going against the rest of the Xindi by doing this, by proceeding with this plan. Right. And that shows how far they're willing to go and what kind of a threat the Xindi reptilians are going to become.
Very good.
I also really enjoy the fact that he's finally going to prove to T'Pol that you can time travel. And even when she gets there, she's like, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm still not fully convinced.
We're like, what city were they at? I forget what city.
Detroit.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So you're in Detroit in 2004, and you still don't believe it? When was the last time you saw a car?
Right.
Never?
Right.
I mean... But she's still looking for gas stations. So, whatever. But I actually enjoyed the episode a lot, too, because it is a fun episode, even though it's crazy. And the whole scene in the car with the burgers and stuff was great. But T'Pol drove me nuts on that scene, because do you have anything not made of meat product or whatever, animal products? And then they're like, oh, well, we can add chicken to that for 75 cents. And instead of just saying, no, I'll have a salad, she doesn't eat anything.
Yeah, she's got to have her that's her Vulcan... stuck-upness, or
just
whatever.
Just a salad. No chicken, thank you.
But I love this guy because he's so greasy. This guy is so
goodness.
greasy and is eating this greasy food. And I think the last time we saw him on Star Trek was in Voyager, and he played the hologram that was against
and
people,
he was
right?
creepy too. Yes,
he was creepy in that. This guy's always creepy. He was in Alien Resurrection. Yep. He was the guy in Seven who was freaking out because he had to use the knife to. This is a family show, and
Wait, he's that guy?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
He's that creepy guy.
He's always the same kind of guy.
This is hilarious because when we were watching it, we're like, hey, it's that guy. And we're like, okay, well, what have we seen him in? And I go and I look on IMDb and I'm like, well, we've seen him in Star Trek. Duh. I think we've just seen him so much that we recognize him from Star Trek.
Right. So basically I call him Creepy Dude. That his Loomis, he was played by Leland Orser. And he also appeared in DS9 Sanctuary, DS9 The Die Is Cast, and as the murderous hologram in Voyager Revulsion. So
yeah, he's one of those guys with like the women had like the crazy hair up and like the little sand pimples all over their foreheads in Deep Space Nine season 2. So
yeah, to me, every time he's on, he's a creepy guy, and he played it up. And like you said, he just looked greasy and creepy and ugh.
He's great for this role. I think this is the best one.
Definitely, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
So here's something. They actually asked this question in the show. Why did Archer and T'Pol have to go?
Because we don't have an episode, Floyd.
Because T'Pol asked Archer. She said, "Why doesn't Daniels just go?" And Archer was like, "Because there's not enough time." And T'Pol says, "Don't they have all the time in the world or something?"
Well, apparently, no. They try and answer that too because he says, which is kind of cool because they end up kind of fixing some problems they have in continuity, whatever, by saying, "Well, it hasn't rippled through yet."
Oh, that's right.
So we don't even know about the weapon. So they're kind of already answering their own question that if they wait too long, they might not know to go back and fix it.
Okay.
So
that actually made...
And he would have to get permission. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because that actually made me think of that some are thinking of Enterprise being on a different time thing, than the original series because the ships look so different and all that good stuff. And that could be like, what if we're watching original series before the ripples come through? That's what I had thought of.
Right, but that kind of fixes any problems where you go, well, that doesn't make any sense considering what we saw in Enterprise. Right. Well, that's because we didn't ripple through yet.
The incursion hasn't rippled through yet, or the change hasn't made it to them yet. Yeah, because Daniels actually didn't know where they were, or didn't know about them, or something, which I don't know how he knew about them, but he knew about them.
It's a little weird, but he had to get permission to go, and they were going to say no. Mm-hmm. So he decides, well, the heck with it, then I'll just send people back.
Right.
But somehow I was still able to requisite a whole bunch of temporal tags to send stuff back to this time.
Right. So we found out that Archer, he can drive a truck because he can pilot a starship. So does that mean because I can drive a truck, I can pilot a starship?
Yeah, no.
Oh. Okay, it doesn't work that way.
I don't think it works that way.
No, because the truck's way easier to drive than the starship.
Yeah,
Floyd.
it's got what is it? Foot pedals and.
Here's the kicker: the captain doesn't drive the starship.
True, but Archer was supposed to be known as being like an amazing pilot. He was.
All captains are amazing pilots, aren't they?
He was supposed to have been an amazing pilot later or something like that.
I completely forgot Daniels was in this episode. So, I don't know. I like Daniels, and I liked seeing him in this episode.
Of course he was in the episode. We went back in time.
I know, but I forgot about it. I forgot that he was in it. So, I like that. Yeah, the ripples haven't gone through yet, so that's why you got to go back, because he can't go back in time because they haven't affected him yet, right? So,
Heather, what did you think about Carpenter Street?
I thought it was a fun episode. It's my third in this set of 4. I thought it was fun. I thought that I liked seeing T'Pol, and I liked the humor involved with T'Pol. The storyline, because I've just sat down to watch these 4 together, and it's been a while since I've watched Enterprise, so I didn't even remember the reference to the biological weapon. So it kind of felt like this weird little hiccup where we're going to mention Xindi, but there's not a whole lot to it.
Right.
But overall, I liked it. Again, it's nice to see an episode that's not a bottle episode. And I like in this set of 4, we've got, 2 that aren't and 2 that are. In doing my research, I learned that this one didn't have great ratings. And I can kind of see why. Overall, I don't think it was super strong, but it was fun, and it's time travel. And I think, a lot of fans really enjoy time travel, and I did. So.
Right. I wonder, because I can say that when I watch Voyager, when they go back to 1994, I don't really enjoy that. And I just wonder if that might be it. Like we're watching Star Trek to see the future.
Yeah.
And
this is so close. Like I honestly, when we went back at first, I thought we were in the 70s. And I think it was just
because of that car.
Well, and Loomis. I mean,
Right,
Loomis
right,
just looks like
right,
he's from the 70s. And so it took me a minute to realize, oh no, wow, okay.
well, now that would have actually probably been cooler.
Yeah, I would have enjoyed that more.
What if they do it back to the 70s?
But I'm a fan of The Voyage Home. It's my favorite of the films, so I like the time travel there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Floyd, what'd you think of The Voyage Home then? I mean, if you don't like that. Oh, he's shaking his head. Okay.
Sorry.
Heather, we need a new host for the show.
It's just this episode. It's Loomis. Loomis is creepy, okay? If he wasn't on X-Files, he should have been. Okay.
Well, speaking of creepy, did you get all the Halloween references that are in here?
I don't
The
think
Carpenter, I mean, John Carpenter, Carpenter Street, the characters, Loomis, Strode, those are all Myers. They reference a Mr. Myers.
Jeez, I did
Oh,
not
my
catch that.
goodness.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Whoop,
Wow.
whoop, whoop, whoop. Holy
Wow.
smokes.
I did not get that.
I did not
I'm
catch
not
that at
quite
all.
sure where that came from, but I did catch them, and I thought that was pretty groovy.
I thought Loomis sounded familiar.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to know? I didn't realize that was his name. I know he kept saying Loomis, but you know what? I think in Canada, Loomis is like an armored truck service that like
Yeah.
does money.
Oh, right.
So I thought that was like his code word. He's like, when you come, you pretend to be the money truck and you say Loomis or whatever. I don't know why he's driving. I don't know why I thought that.
Wow.
But Sam Loomis. Oh my goodness.
Okay, now
this
that's
is
a reason
awesome.
to go watch the show again. Go watch this episode, because now I'm going to look for the Halloween references.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
You're welcome.
All right,
I have
very
another
good.
fun tidbit if you want.
Sure.
Yes.
So when I was looking at the cast for this episode, I was really surprised that Jeffrey Dean Morgan was in it. Because I didn't remember Jeffrey Dean Morgan being in it. He's in Walking Dead right now. He's
He's
Negan.
Negan, yeah.
And was he in Watchmen too?
Yes.
I think. So yeah,
Yes.
so pretty big actor. So this was, I guess, before he got super popular. And I went in and I was reading through.
Was he a Zindi or
Yeah,
what?
he was the Zindi reptilian. I think the one that had the lines.
Wow.
Didn't have a name, but had lines. And I thought it was really interesting that I read that apparently he really did not enjoy being in the makeup and actually said that this episode made him want to quit acting.
Oh,
But he didn't, thank goodness.
right. Definitely. Well,
But definitely not a fan of prosthetics, not a fan of putting on makeup.
and that was a serious makeup job. Like, to be a reptilian is a serious makeup job.
Yeah,
And
I mean, that had to be out, at least 8 hours probably,
Right.
if not more.
Wow.
Yeah, probably more.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I was like, oh, and I guess I think that he has a certain voice that you would recognize, and I didn't recognize the voice as the reptilian Zindi, so I was like, huh, okay.
I didn't recognize it either.
Fun to have a guest star like that, although you had no idea that it was him.
Maybe he played Porthos.
So
Very good. Very good.
So did anyone else have a problem with the idea that this guy this Zindi thought he was going to throw this tube into like a exhaust fan and kill off 70% of the world?
I think he was just going to try to kill as many as he could, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but like the number they gave was if you kill 70% of the population,
Right.
then the Earthlings don't create a risk later on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he wanted to. If they had the other blood type, they would have killed everybody. Right?
How
And
far was this cloud going to go?
Well, no, it would have been something that would have been like passed on and passed on. Like, have you ever seen the Planet of the Apes movie, The Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and how that ape disease, like the pilot is the one that gets it, and if you watch through the end credits and stuff, it shows the pilot going on his plane, and then it's just a map, and it's a red line of his plane, and it lands in a populated airport, and then it spreads.
Wow.
And then all of those lines land in a populated airport, and they spread from there. And it's like I just assumed it would be something like that, like that it would get to 100 people, which would go to 1,000 people, which would go to 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought of it more of like not that kind of biological warfare.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
But there's actually an iPhone game like that, and apparently the Zindi never played it because that doesn't
Yeah.
work.
I know that game. I actually have played that game. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't beat any of the levels. But I'm trying to look it up on my phone to find out what the name of it is.
Oh well, they didn't pay to get advertised on our show. So.
Yeah, true. But the point is you give someone a disease and you have to take out the whole
Right.
world. Yeah, and the Xindi didn't play if they thought this was going to work.
Right. Well, I think he was just going to take out whoever he could because he knew he couldn't make it back. And he knew that he had his delivery system was already destroyed or whatever. So I'm just going to take out this block of people. And then
everything just went really wrong.
Maybe it'll work. And I have to say that this episode was a application, or it was like it was a chance for Bakula to show that he can do a crime drama, like a modern time crime drama, because he's chasing him, he's jumping over buildings, he's, if you'll go back and watch the scenes of him chasing them, like when the camera comes up close to him, the way he's holding his gun, the way he's talking on his communicator, things like that. I think this let Bakula show people that, hey, I can go do CSI after this. So I think
it fits with the Carpenters. I think it fits with our hero captain,
right?
And we see a lot of that with Archer, and then along with T'Pol being there. They play off of her volcanism, her being Vulcan. So it's a great opportunity to showcase both of those aspects of their character. Well, being Vulcan is not necessarily an aspect of her character, but the traits that come along with being Vulcan, I guess.
All right. So our next episode is Chosen Realm. So we have the crew that are investigating another sphere, and they get seen by these aliens who think that they're just perfect for them. And it turns out that they have ulterior motives on this. So, Patrick, what did you think about Chosen Realm?
I think this is a typical, I don't know, it's kind of Star Trek's, with the exception of DS9, this is kind of their take on religious fanatics in general. Right. They kind of show them as this kind of character, and I mean, they're literally taking over the ship so they can win a war and justifying it by, well, you stepped on a sphere, which is sacrilegious in our religion, so, we're supposed to punish you. I don't know. I liked the episode, I guess. It didn't really do much for me. It kind of detracted from everything else.
So, Heather, they had biological bombs, so they were like suicide bombers themselves. Yeah. So, what did you think about that?
I really don't like this episode. Like Patrick said, it really is just one that's playing off of religious zealots and kind of sending the same message that Star Trek always does, which is that it's bad. I think it was a pretty direct comment on 9/11 and what happened there, and
right.
Trying to remember if we had any other attacks between then and when this episode came out.
We did. We had one of the embassies.
Okay. Yeah.
But and I can't remember which one. But sorry to cut in.
Oh, go ahead.
The one interesting factor is season 3 is, to me, just a commentary on 9/11, and this is actually taking the other side of that argument from what we see in the normal season. Right. Whereas in the beginning, we're all gung-ho to go there and kill every Xindi we can find, and Star Trek's kind of telling us, oh, slow down, not everyone's the same. And in this one, it's taking it we're watching it kind of from the point of view of the terrorists who carried out the attacks. Right. And once again, showing you it's still just a small group of whatever that race is, because essentially what we're led to believe is they're fighting their own race over which way to take the religion.
But, see, the reason why I find this episode interesting is because that's what happens on our planet.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, they boil it down to the simple fact of they believe that the Expanse was created in 9 days, and we believe it's done in 10, right? Which is, when you boil it down to that, that's ridiculous. But those are the kind of arguments that people on our planet fight over and kill each other over for religion. Maybe not that simple, but I mean, like, for example, like, I've said it before, I'm a Christian, right? And I struggle with the idea of creationism. Even as a Christian, I believe there's a God, but I still struggle with the creationism. However, my religion doesn't tell me that I have to believe in creationism to go to heaven. All it tells me that I have to do is believe that Jesus died on the cross for my sins, and that's what will get me into heaven. So whether or not I believe in God created everything in 7 days or not is not going to prevent me from getting to heaven, at least as far as I understand my religion, right? So, but people will fight over things like that.
Right.
And there are people on our planet who believe that the Earth has been around for 6,000 years, and there's people on our planet who believe it's been around for 65 million years, or whatever the number is, right? So, and that's something that I struggle with. But I think it's an interesting thing that it's boiling it down to this simple thing. And this episode also makes me think a lot of Let That Be Your Last Battlefield from the original Star Trek series. Right? You know, like almost to the point of, yeah, they're not half black and half white, but their religious symbol is on the opposite sides of their face.
Yeah.
Their planet's been destroyed at the end of the episode, and they still want to fight anyways. Right? So it's kind of a callback to that episode to me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. So I enjoy this. It's not my favorite of the four. It's my least favorite of the four, but I still think it's a powerful episode, and it's an interesting story to bring up discussion with.
I think so also. Like, it's a very tense episode, and it's not one of my favorites, but I appreciate what they're saying or what they're trying to say, or they're bringing it from that angle. You know, there's still a lesson. You know, even in most Star Trek episodes, even if they're not that great, there can still be something that can be taken from it. And this was taking it very extreme. I mean, it's like they were putting it in, okay, this could happen on Earth, or it has happened on Earth, but here it is in space. These aliens see these spheres, so they must be created by a god or gods, and they worship the spheres, you know, or the sphere builders, or whoever would have created them. So it is a different take, you know, because you're seeing it from the point of view of the, like you said, of the terrorists, you know, in this case, or just the people that this is how we believe and you don't believe this way. So obviously we're right and you're not, you know, and
Right. And what I found interesting is they deleted all the information about the spheres.
Oh, that was
I
painful.
know.
Yeah.
Very.
That's a big blow.
Yeah.
But it's like book burnings. I
Yeah.
mean, we had them all over the world, over different periods in different areas. And also, when he uttered the orders to have the person kill himself, and it killed one of Archer's, he said, you know, I had to make sure you knew our resolve, but I lost one in that too. And almost as if he thought Archer would feel bad for him, like, yeah, you lost one. He's the guy who killed mine. I really don't care. You know, and he's like, but I'll pray for both of them. And even me sitting at home is like, no, don't pray. That's horrible.
right.
You caused this. There's no need to pray now.
Yeah, they're true villains, and it's hard to empathize with them because I think they're so villainous. Aside from, you know, the one couple, I'm trying to remember, Yarrick, was it Yarrick? Was that his name? That was
Oh, right.
Oh, with the wife who wanted the
Yeah.
Again, bring
Bob
up
and Sue.
abortion.
Just call him Bob and Sue.
Sue.
Yeah.
But I think that because they vilified Prenon, he had a weird name. Prenom,
Prenom was his religious title.
right? Jamat.
Dijamot.
I think, for me anyway, but because it was just very hard to give him empathy, and ultimately I think that detracted from the moral of the story and from making it more powerful. I think it did a bit of a disservice to them and to their religion, because not everyone is a religious zealot. I don't know. I get that he was supposed to be bad, but
Right, yeah, and that you're not empathizing him because he is a bad guy, and you're not supposed to empathize him. And I mean, I think part of the episode that's weak is that this whole thing relies on the fact that there's people within his religious ship here that don't agree with him. And it's up to Archer to make them realize that it's a bad way, and, oh, yeah, I'm Archer, and I'm going to bring you over to my side. And that's kind of the frustrating thing I have with the episode. I almost think the episode would have been better if maybe there was nobody that was questioning his religious orders, and they were all crazy zealots on this, right? I almost think, because when they go back to the planet, the entire planet has been wiped out. So that leads me to believe that these people are all crazy zealots, right? Like, so it relies on that couple helping Archer, and that's what I think is the weak part of the episode, you know? Let that be your last battlefield. At the end of the episode, they're both crazy because they want to kill each other, right? So, you know, and that's what I think is part of the reason and part of the sadness of the ending of that episode even more, right?
But I think one of the commentaries it's making is that you don't need everyone to be the same kind of religious zealot. You just need enough in the right positions to push the others into the war. Like, if you had a group that wasn't really religious, or they were religious, but they kind of just, let you believe what you want to believe, I'll believe what I want to believe, and let's, move on. But you had another group that was trying to bash that theory in on you, you'd eventually fight back. maybe not to make them believe what you want, but to let you believe what you want. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Right.
And the fact that the one couple wants out, that's one of the things I like about it, because right around then, wasn't that just after, no, that was earlier. I was thinking that was Heaven's Gate, but that was about 7 years earlier. But I'm sure there was some cult going on somewhere in the world at that time. There always is one. But, there were people who were always leaving things like different cults or even religions, like, and here in America it's considered a religion, not everywhere in the world, but Scientology. And people can't get out of them. It's almost impossible. But they want to, and this was their way of not forcing their child into that life.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting episode. I mean, it has some touchy situations, or it tucks on some touchy topics. I actually thought of it as a cult, and this was a leader of a cult, and they believe 9 days, that the spheres were built in 9 days, and the other guy was in 10. And Archer asked, and that's why you've been fighting for a century, really? So it was, it does bring the let this be your last battlefield, because that really, that's kind of an obvious, because it's when they really say what this is, it's like, oh my goodness.
It's so very similar. I think that Gene Roddenberry would be very happy with this episode. Ultimately, I mean, it's a very anti-religious episode to me. I don't know if you guys felt that at all.
Yes, absolutely. And I do find that frustrating with Star Trek, especially as a Christian.
Yeah.
Right? But, I still like the episode, but I do find it a frustrating
I just
episode.
felt it was just a bit too much. And I think that they could have made Dijmat, probably said his name wrong, sorry.
Dijonnaise.
I like that one
Honey
better.
Dijon?
I think they could have...
Dijon and mayonnaise together.
They could have made him just a little bit more dynamic. And I want to compare him so much to Gul Dukat, and I can't, because, Gul Dukat was a character that was developed over a very, very long time. But for me, he's the kind of villain that you hate him, but you're compelled by him. And I feel like this guy could have had a little bit of that to make me enjoy this episode a bit more. And it didn't. So
I just think the placement of this episode is terrible. It's really why I don't particularly care for it. I think it takes away from the story. It tells a similar story, but takes away from the whole Xindi arc.
Yeah, the one thing that we get out of it is we bring back the spheres, right? This is the third time we've seen the spheres, I think. Yeah, so it brings back the spheres. And I don't know if they knew what they were going to do with the spheres, but it brings them back one more time. I mean, we get the number 59 out of here, and again, you get to Paul, the scientist, fighting with the religious guy, and, you get that all over the place, too. And, it's just... Yeah, it's hitting the nail really on the head, but, so did Let That Be Your Last Battlefield.
I really enjoyed using the transporter. That was just I think that was my favorite part of this episode. It was just, such a clever, fun thing.
So, Heather, what was your overall impression of this block, this 4-episode block?
Overall, I really enjoyed these episodes. I think for Enterprise, Season 4 is really my favorite. But Season 3 does a good job of ramping up to Season 4. And especially with North Star and Similitude. I mean, Similitude is such a standout episode overall. Mm-hmm. North Star comes in second. I just think it was a really fun story. And again, it was a great moral wrapped up in one episode. I like them, but Chosen Realm, honestly, I almost fell asleep and I had to say, no, I cannot take a nap during this episode because I have to talk about it on the podcast. But, again, I think there's a core message to that one. I like that all of these episodes call back to previous Star Trek episodes, and that could be a good thing and that could be a bad thing. We know that in Enterprise we're running out of ideas, right?
But remember, this is a prequel, so it actually hasn't happened anywhere else yet, right? So
that's a positive, and I like that. And I like that we had, two fun, expensive episodes that were not on the ship, and then the 2 bottle episodes. It was nice to have, not 4 bottle episodes or something. So overall, I had fun doing this, and I'm excited that I got to watch these episodes, even if I really didn't like one of them.
Okay, very good. So Patrick, what did you think about this block?
I actually love this block. I think that the first 3 episodes I just love in general. Like I said, the last one, I'm not a big fan of it, but I think it's more placement than the episode itself. I love the fact that all of them have some moral discussion. And even though I didn't like the last one, I mean, I could debate that episode for hours. And that's true of all of them, which is why I watch Star Trek. Mm-hmm. I want those moral and ethical issues to come out and be discussed and talked about. And each one of them hits a very important one. The first one is slavery. The second one is cloning. The third, right. Yeah, and then you have the third one, which is biowarfare and what are you willing to do to do it, and the last one being cults or religious zealots or both sides of that. So, all in all, I think it's a phenomenal set of 4 for that reason alone. I would watch it just to debate those episodes.
Very good. Brandon, what?
And we didn't do this before, so real quick, someone on Babel Conference just send us a math equation. We'll answer it for you on the Babel Conference, because we just have nothing to do this time.
Very good. And Brandon, what did you feel? How'd you feel about these 4 episodes?
I think this is a very strong block. I think it's the strongest of the 3 that we've covered so far. It was really good, and I basically agree with Patrick. The first 3 I think are really good, and while I don't think that the last one is as good as those 3, it's better than some of the ones we've seen this season so far. Like, I definitely prefer this episode to Regine, to Extinction. So I don't think this is by far the worst episode we've seen of the season. And it hits the message of the nail on the head pretty much centered there. I think it's given us a lot to talk about and some good stuff, and I've had a lot of fun tonight. I think all 4 of these episodes have given us some great discussion.
Yeah, actually, these 4, they're pretty solid. I mean, North Star I love, Similitude I love, Carpenter Street,
you will love.
I got to go watch it again now for all for the references in it. And actually, Chosen Realm, I like it. I mean, it's better than a lot of other things. Not even in Star Trek, but outside. I mean, it's if you go for it and you go fish for like the meaning or what they're really trying to say, or you can usually find something in Star Trek episode, and even Chosen Realm has something for that. So yeah, I really like that. So Heather, if our listeners would like to talk to you a little bit more about Enterprise, how could they get in touch with you?
I am LLA Posper on Twitter, and I would love to talk about Star Trek, so please follow me.
Very good, very good. And Patrick, how could our listeners...
How about do you have any podcasts that you do?
Oh, well, yeah, I could mention that too. Sorry, I'm off in Enterprise land. So, yeah, I'm the co-host of Shore Leave, that is part of the Tricorder Transmissions Network. So we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're all over the place. Just Google us and we'll pop up.
Very good, very good. And Patrick, if our listeners would like to get in touch with you to discuss this block or just season 3 in general, how can they get in touch with you?
As we stated before, so people are already cursing me out there. Magic Drop 5 on Twitter, 1 word. The 5 is a number, not a word.
Remember, he's the one that thought killing Sim was the easy decision.
No, that's not what I said at all. But now that I'm being yelled at for it, the Babel Conference, I'm always checking it out. I don't always respond, but if you yell at me about Sim dying, I'll promise I'll respond and post your math questions.
Okay.
I'm pretty good at it. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I got it down.
Very good, very good, very good. So Star Trek Westerns is not the only thing we've been talking about on Trek FM this week. So here's what you may have missed elsewhere on the network.
Previously on Trek.fm, Literary Treks.
McCoy eventually gets command of the Enterprise, and one of the reasons for this is that he makes little comments to Kirk occasionally about how he has a cushy job. He's got, this nice comfortable chair he can sit in, because McCoy at this point, he's got a lot of people getting sick on the Enterprise. There's colds, there's broken legs or whatever. I mean, there's just, for some reason, sickbay is busy.
The 602 Club.
There's a certain aspect to what's happening with superhero stories where they really sort of want the villains to be more complex, and they want you to sometimes sympathize with them and have their personas be, deeper, richer, perhaps not so pure evil.
The Ready Room.
Yeah, I think it's almost like a journal or a diary entry, a verbal diary reflection in the middle of the episode when he's reflecting on society. And it's the thing that I love about it, it's all very socially aware and well written. It's really well done. But Spock's verbal description of everything going on struck me this time.
This would be like if in The Next Generation you hear Captain's Log, First Officer William Riker, recording for Captain Picard, who's currently on holiday.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out these shows and find out what we're talking about in your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And while you're there, please leave us a star rating and written review. If you're not an Apple user, we've still got you covered. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file or grab the RSS link from our website. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways you can do that. The best way to join in the larger discussion is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the search field on Facebook and join in on all the fun. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. And if you'd like to send us a voice transmission, the comm officer has the frequency open. Just go to speakpipe.com/TrekFM, record your message, and Brandon Shea will add it to a future episode. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select Warp 5. That'll come right to us. If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/trekfm. That's patreon.com/trekfm to get all the details. You can get in there and you can find all kinds of perks for patrons. You can, for $1 a month, you can actually be helping our network. But for $5 a month, you actually get access to the Patron Zone. And then it goes up from there. You can get producer credits, you can get exclusive content in the Patron Zone, and you can just help out more and more in the network. So if that sounds good to you, please visit patreon.com/TrekFM. Thank you so much for that. Also, if you want to wear your Trek FM fandom, you can find great Trek FM themed merchandise at trekfm.store. I always like to thank our co-associate producers, Mike Morrison, Tim Cooper, and Justin Oser. I also like to thank Brandon Shea for editing and publishing Warp 5, and Tony Robinson for creating the very cool show art. So, Brandon, if our listeners would like to talk to you about this block of episodes, how could they reach you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Brandon Matella. I poke my head up every once in a while in the Babel Conference. And you can find me here on the network with new episodes of Melodic Treks, which is all about the music of Star Trek, as well as over on the Fandom Podcast Network with my friends Chris and Tom, where we have our podcast called Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. And Floyd, where can people find you if they would like to talk to you?
Well, I poke my head up in the Babel Conference, usually. That's probably the best place to find me, the Trek FM listeners page on Facebook. So, Boomers, thank you for listening, and join us again next time for another episode of Warp 5.